Hey, what's up guys, Mendel here. Hope you're all doing wonderful. Today we're going to mix synths or synthesizers in a metal mix. So as always, let's dig right in. Here we go. So a short disclaimer before we go into the mixing. So in this video I want to showcase the fundamentals, or as I should say, the very basics. So I'm going to show how to thicken up a metal riff with synths and how to support or thicken up a lead line, like a solo line, like a melody line. So because there are a million ways to implement synths into a metal mix, and I thought for this video just go to some very basic stuff, so even the beginner mixers under us can be like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds cool, now I know what to do. Having that said, let's go, let's dig right in, here we go. Alright, so here we are. We're first going to dig into the riff and the synthesizer supporting like the metal riff, and when we're done with that, we'll dig into the lead part and the lead synths and stuff. So what we're going to listen to, this is one of my solo tracks from my upcoming solo album. I'm almost done recording all the solos for it, but I thought it would be a great example to show how we use synths in the mix. So let's first play the riff without the synths, and then I'll show it with the synths and etc. Here we go. Alright, so, and I'll dig into all the synths and stuff, but let's listen to the synths solo first, so you can hear what's going on. And now all together. Nice and proggy, if I may say so, kind of dream theater-ish. So before I even mix, I'll show you how much of a difference or how much synthesizers can lift up a riff like this. So I'll leave it on, but during the riff I'll mute it, and you can hear like it sinks in a bad way, like there's something missing. So the synthesizer definitely thickens up the whole riff, which I really like. So what did I do? So these are all Cubase synths, no kidding. So what I did, and perhaps it's better if I just do it left, right, left, right. Yeah, so now left, right, left, right, left, right. So the first one is one of my favorite synths of all time, the Spectre from Cubase. And I used it's called Virtual Lentilia. It's not sure how you pronounce it, that synth. It's like thickening. Like vintage. And what I like to do with synths to give it kind of a human feel, so it's not like exactly on point, I shift it a couple of milliseconds. So left is like 7 milliseconds back in time, and the other one is 4 further away. So it's not even, it's random. So this one is like -4, this one is 8, this one's -5, this one's 5. So this is, instead of having everything exactly on the beat, I rather have it kind of like off the beat, like off the grid, if you would say, left and right, and that also makes it sound wider. And then the Spectre, which is one of my favorite presets. I think it's normally called the saw preset, something with saw, but I tweaked it a little and it sounds like this. So that's that, and then the last one is a Retrologue. A really fizzy synth with a preset called Dynasaw. Really cool. And all of them together, Now because of the stacking of these different synths, because all of these go to a synths riff bus, there's a lot of low end going on. And since I already have a kick drum around 50 Hz and a bass guitar slamming around 80, 100 Hz, I'll just make some room for those instruments, but still try to keep the thickness. Yeah, like perhaps even go to 100, but that keeps the mix nice and tight and clean, like I love my metal mixes. Now, one thing to pay attention with synths, and especially with the lead synth you'll show later, but synths most of the time have a lot of high end, and most pop, trance, EDM productions have a bigger frequency spectrum, in my opinion, than metal, because synths can go like really, really high, and most of the time in the metal mix, the most high we have is the cymbals of the overheads of the drummer. So you might want to reduce that a bit so it fits in the mix. Now, the stuff I'm talking about, so let me solo the riff, is this. With some good headphones or some good speakers, you can definitely hear this. But that's stuff you want to be aware of, and especially when I'll show you on the lead, there's a lot of that in the highs. So filter off around 100 and then filter off some of the highs. Because the main thing is I want to use these synths to support the guitar riff, which is mid-range. So that's what I'm going to have my synths focus on. Now it's like more focused in the mids. Let's check that. And somewhere in the lower mids, I can see it's like struggling against the guitar. So I'm gonna get the guitars in here. So you can see there's like a lot of low mids on the guitars, which I like. Around, let's see, like 120 Hertz, 130. So I'm gonna reduce that a tiny bit on the synthesizer so they make room for the guitar, because I still wanna be the main part, the guitar. It's a metal band or it's a metal song. Guitars are the main thing. So even after cutting off that stuff, like the lows and the highs and some of the mids, still when I take the synths away, it loses something. And there's a tiny thing, I'm not sure if you can hear it, hopefully you can, something in the mids. Alright, so that's it for the riff section. So I would say experiment with this. Try out different synthesizers, program the MIDI so they play exactly the same thing as your riff, and most of the time this works best when you play like single string riffs. I'm not talking about playing the riff only on one string, but that like when there's only one note on the guitar playing. That's when I prefer it most of the time. Alright, so let's go to the solo section. So let's listen to the solo section first without the synthesizers, and then I'll put them in along the way. Here we go. So that's the part. Really proud of this part. Can't wait for the song to get released. But let's add in the synthesizers. So I have a Spectre lead here. It's the same setting of that's based on that Saw preset. So that's basically the sound. So within the song, so really cool. A really cool thing with the Spectre thing is when you add in the modulation, it adds vibrato. So when I solo this one, I absolutely love that. So later down the road of that riff and that lead line, I thickened up with some other couple of synths. So Pad Shop with the preset Airy Bell, and again, these are all Cubase synthesizers, but I really like this. And you might think it sounds cheesy, but I love that kind of sound. And then there's a cool setting called Top of the 80s in Spectre. Love that. So all the three of them. So within the song, and don't worry about the patch yet, I'll add them in later. So those are the synth leads, and then to even extra thicken it up, I like to add some pads. So I just used Pad Shop preset Transparent and Pad Shop Transparent again, but I think it's a different preset. Let me see. This is Triple Pulse Pad. So this is Transparent, which sounds like this. Really chimey, almost early 90s, I'd say, 80s, late 80s. And this one, again, the Triple Pulse Pad sounds like this. And together, so first all of that without mixing. Very cool in my opinion. Okay, so let's dig into the leads. So I got all of these leads summed into this synth lead bus, and let's loop this section first. So remember earlier when I said about that high-end kind of stuff? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So in most metal mixes, you don't need a lot of that high end. So I'll filter all the lows that I don't need. In case of when there's like really low notes, I don't want to mess it with the low end and the lower mids of my mix. let's check that. So sounds awesome, but I hear something in the mids, and you can already see it like it's poking around here. So something around the mids. And it's really subjective because it really depends on what synth you use, where you cut. So don't copy these exact settings. But if I should give like main advice, listen how bright the synths are and how it fits with your guitar tone and your lead and that kind of stuff in the overall mix. And most of the time around the mids, it can be really pokey. So make sure you pay attention to that. Now what I like to do is to extra thicken it up is I like to use a ping pong delay. And this is the ping pong from Cubase, which is one of my favorite delays of all time, to be honest. And I like to use the Verb from Reverence, Dutch Concert Hall in this one. So let's see how that sounds. That's cool. Cool. And to show you how much impact this makes, because the thing is, these are characters that a guitar can do. So that's why I give like a whole nother dimension or extra layer to support your leads. So I'll mute it down the road and you can definitely hear it sounds worse in my opinion without the synths. Okay, so now the last thing, the pads. So let's blend them in. So I can definitely hear, like when I go too loud, but I can definitely hear there's something in the lower mids going against the grain. So around, I would say lower mids, but around like 300 Hertz. That area. And to be honest, the high end on this synth is pretty soft and I don't find it not pleasing, if it makes sense. I think it sounds good as is. definitely adds a lot to it. It brings like a whole nother vibe to the song, in my opinion. So now let's listen to it when I mute it, and then I'll turn it on. Right. Okay, so I love synths in metal. Very curious to hear what you think. But that's how you can add some cool synths in metal, either to support a riff or to support lead lines. Those are some cool, very basics. Hopefully you learned something today, and see you next time. Stay safe. Bye-bye.